Welcome to In the Light with me, Anna Isabel. I am an analytical hypnotherapist, and I have with me today Sonia Barrett, who caught my eye because of a book called Health, an Inside Job, an Outside Business. Welcome, Sonia.
Hello, good to be here.
So I think that title, it says quite a lot, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I mean, I'm not sure how much you know about the book, but it really is a supporting, what should I say? It's an extension of the film, The Business of Disease, and Health and Inside Job. Yes, an outside business. Definitely what we're dealing with. We're always dealing with it, but particularly now, yeah, it's an inside job. It's a dual meaning. It's an inside job in you, but then it's an inside job in terms of politics. Oh my God. Yeah. So here we are.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's funny because I've had this book for some time. Came across it this summer and I thought, never a truer praise spoken. So I thought I had to invite you on. Tell us a little bit about the documentary, The Business of Disease.
Well, the film came out actually 2016, and it was something that I had done, not realizing that it would have become what it's become. I basically observed breast cancer awareness month, but I didn't know it was breast cancer awareness month because I wasn't paying any attention. I just kept wondering, why is it every time I go to the store, they're asking me, to donate, and I just wasn't thinking about it. And so for me at that time, I just sort of questioned how this was all reacting anyway, or how we were reacting to this. How was our brain responding to this marketing? Do we stand more of a chance of developing certain things because it's so suggested? That's really how it started. And then the color pink, and wondering how our brain interprets that now, because our brain responds to symbols, and because that's our first language, is symbols. So that's really how it started. And so I basically sort of reached out to a few people who were experts in their field, and said, oh, I'm just going to do a little video. I'm going to do maybe like a YouTube video. It's kind of how it started. And then it became something else. It became this film, this feature film. That's how that happened. But that's where this stemmed from. And I wrote an article called The Marketing of Breast Cancer, the Pink Ribbon Agenda. And it's on the website still. You can still find it on the realsoniabarrett.com.
So what would you say to the argument that being aware is good? Raising public awareness, it acts to prevent disease.
Raising public awareness, and it depends on who's bringing the information forward. It's something so simple have become so unbelievably biased. It's so bizarre. We live in this upside down world. First of all, we're from nature. I mean, that is clear. I don't know how anybody can dispute that, because I always say, if we remove all the buildings, if we remove all of our construction, and we removed it all, and all we saw was dirt and the trees and the rocks and just the natural surroundings, that tells you basically all that we truly really have. And all that is supplied, everything then is supplied for the body, to nourish the body. You find fruits, vegetables. I mean, you could sustain yourself. You can even maybe hide in a cave. I don't know. You might even be able to take some leaves and, string together somehow and make clothing. But the bottom line of it is, it should be no conflict to recognize that fruits and vegetables or nutrient-rich foods, and how we prepare our foods, the more natural the food is, the more beneficial it's going to be for the body. The body is made up of the elements. All elements run through the body. You know, we're earth, we're fire, we're wind. You know, we breathe. That's wind. That's oxygen. Our body heats up. When we get a temperature, we recognize the fire aspect of ourselves, and of course the bones. There's so many things here that are evidence that yes, having that kind of awareness is going to help you to maintain a healthy body. And the emotional aspect of it, is there's so much stress. There's so much stress, especially stressing over being well or being healthy, especially when you're okay. Technically, you're not sick, but you can make yourself sick because of the stress. So the stress then impacts the body, which when we say impacts the body, what are we talking about? The immune system can just totally be shot. We've seen it with people going, oh my gosh, I suddenly got sick. I got a cold. I came down with the flu, because your body is what? They'll go, my body's so run down. My body's so why is it that we can't like put all that together? So that means then that your emotional, how your emotional health is, and how tired you are, how much rest you're getting, how stressed you are, it's clear that the body is responding no differently than when you are afraid and you get a knot in your stomach. You feel it, or your heart beats really fast. That tells you that there is something to it emotionally. So the emotional health is extremely significant. And if you're afraid of getting sick and you're running around just absorbing all the news, that's going to affect you emotionally, which is then going to be a domino effect, and it's going to affect your immune support, because the body has to try to compensate. It has to try to balance emotionally and physically. And I just want to say one more thing, because I mentioned the emotional part. What folks need to understand is that the body will become acid even from your emotions. The acid level is going to make a big difference. And a certain, I don't even want to use that word because they flag everything, but the body, these certain little critters or certain things can't survive in a more alkaline body, which means that the body is more oxygenated. And so it can't survive there. So, I mean, it's very, very simple. Look at what you're eating right now. Look at your lifestyle. Be honest with yourself about your lifestyle. Be honest with yourself. Are you happy? Are you sad? What are your present conditions with relationships or jobs? All of that counts. It always did count, but now in particular, because of self-responsibility. So I'll stop there, because it's a big thing to me. It's like a big subject to me. That's a really small subject. It's really important to me because it's that simple.
But you're absolutely right. And that was why I invited you to come on to and as a hypnotherapist, I understand very well the link between the mind and the body, which is exactly what you're talking about. There is a link. So not only do we need to take care of ourselves physically, but we also need to take care of ourselves emotionally. And I think what I found particularly interesting in what you were saying also was the question you set out to answer in your documentary, which was about the impact that a saturation of the public psyche with messages about cancer, what would that impact be? And I think it's really important, that question. And it's one which actually really taxes my mind too, because we understand the power of suggestion. Suggestion is a very powerful thing. It's how the placebo works. So we know, for instance, that people taking red pills often do better than taking other color pills. That's a placebo effect. Irrespective of what might be in the pill itself, whether or not the pill is designed to be a placebo, there is an added extra from the color and people associating that color with potency. And we do this subconsciously. We're not aware that we're doing it. It's not that we're more gullible. It's not that we're uneducated. Right. It's just a subconscious.
This is an automatic response.
Absolutely. And so that's an example of the placebo effect. But we also know about the nocebo, which is that when a doctor tells you that you're going to have side effects, or that certain things are going to happen to your body now that you've contracted a particular disease, you are much likely to have that happen. So because it's an authority figure, you're taking it as a suggestion. So it's a fine balance between having a public awareness campaign and saturating the psyche. And we need to be very careful and very wise about the way we go about these things, because otherwise we could absolutely be creating a situation where the very stress that is being created has an impact on the population. So you asking that question, I thought, yeah, of course, that's a very valid question to be asking. And we do need to monitor ourselves when we set out with public health campaigns.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I saw at the very onset of this was the time frame, because we all have heard this, we all know this, and with you being a hypnotherapist, you know this, how long it might take to form a habit. And there's just various degrees and various time frames according to what that particular thing is and the individual. We have had over 600 days or over, I know it's over 500 days to be reprogrammed. And people have been reprogrammed in so many different ways. And I think what's interesting with this kind of repatterning and reprogramming is it's so subtle. The changes that are made to one's thinking, one's mind, one belief system become so subtle. And I had to pay attention to it for myself. And so we formed these habits that we won't even notice. You can almost start to forget who you were and what you were like, 500 and something days ago, because of the intensity of the pounding of the program in a way, a short period of time to change the world, to change human beings. It's been an intense process, intense. And so I saw that. I looked at that in the very beginning. I thought, man, and I didn't know it was going to last that long. I thought, man, I thought just a few months. I'm like, people are going to be reprogrammed. And so a lot of people got reprogrammed with intense levels of fear and distrust for everything, for everyone, danger, everywhere. And that has become the normal for many people without realizing it. We were already primed for danger, and be cautious. As technology evolved, or continues to evolve, what we see and what we hear, I mean, even without major technology, but commercials. And I remember driving down the street one day and I heard this commercial, and it was this car crash, bam, jolted me. It was an insurance ad. And I thought, I wonder how many accidents just happened because of that. Signs on our freeways here in Los Angeles, you'll see it, the digital signs about something about how you need to respond so that you don't crash. And these words that are thrown out, that are constantly thrown out. And when one operates in a state of unawareness and so sort of, you're ripe for suggestions and also locking up your house, and we're watching TV, and then there is a reenactment of a robbery and a break-in. Oh, well, you've got to get this security system. So there's always this programming of somebody else coming to our rescue or protecting us or saving us. Somebody else knows what's best for me. I don't. But if I get these things, or if I listen, then I'll be okay. This is why people have fallen into this well of fear so easily, because they've been primed for it. So there's so many factors to this, so many layers to this, that it's just mind-boggling to me to step back and to watch this happen. And I hear from people where they're shocked that friends and family, people that they knew real closely, that they're shocked that their response has been in such deep levels of fear. Well, it is. And on another level, humanity, we can look at the optimistic level, that this is an opportunity. So I want to make sure I throw that out, that this is an opportune time. It's always been opportunities, but now that we're in a cycle, right? The planet goes through cycles. We all go through cycles. Our body goes through cycles. Everything goes through cycles. And we're in this particular cycle right now that affects the entire planet, the rotation of our planet, and how many cycles it's gone through. Well, this particular moment, we're here. So you have an opportunity to go on the default, which means you just ride that treadmill or whatever, or you can come into this state of awareness of who am I? Who am I? We can come into that state of really taking an honest look at ourselves and taking back our power. Just really recognizing that it was never even really lost. It's always been there, but we're distracted by all the bells and whistles of fear that's being projected. And just own your power. And when we own our power, at that moment, we can say, okay, wow, where have I been? What am I doing? What do I need to do for me right now? And when we know what to do for ourselves and we're more centered, we can help our families much better. And I'm talking your immediate families, which are your kids, your spouse. You can't convince anybody of anything. Don't try to convince people. Live your truth. And maybe by living that truth, people may then ask you, but don't get into fights with family members. It just pushes them in the opposite direction. Just live you at this moment. So that's what I want to say. This is very powerful. It's spiritual awakening, inner awakening, but we must recognize all of the other things that are going on. And it's not just bury our head in the sand and go, okay, well, I'm just going to be positive. We have to recognize the journey that is happening right now, so that we don't silently get locked in and lost in a zone that we don't even realize we're in. We want to be in the now, in that kind of awareness, to observe our lives and our environment.
And ultimately, your book was written a few years ago. What year was it?
Let's see, 2014.
It was a few years ago.
Yeah,
yeah. And what I loved about it is because it's about empowerment. Mm-hmm. It's about saying, okay, and just to explain that it is a collection mm-hmm. of written by extraordinarily wonderful health practitioners.
Those in the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're talking about cellular health and the impact, well, really the mind-body connection that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing that was so utterly inspiring when I was reading these articles. And mm-hmm. I think that it is all about understanding that outside the cacophony of noise that we hear, that mm-hmm. it begins with us right here in this moment. How much stress are we under emotionally, and how much stress are we under physically? Because that is the root of the disease that we feel and the disease that our bodies then suffers from. And so we need to make sure that we're doing our best to be as balanced as we can within ourselves, both in the way that we look after ourselves physically and emotionally too. And that's really, it's not an easy act. It's not an easy balancing act, because particularly for people on lower incomes, having to work longer hours, that balance becomes harder. So for some people, it's harder than for others, but we all must do our best to make sure we get enough sleep, enough down, to talk to people when we're, stressed about something, have somebody that we can talk to, confide in, to help de-stress us, do simple things like mind our breathing, mind our posture to help with our breathing. All of that kind of thing is very, very important. So it was really nice to read that in your book and your documentary, of course. That's where it comes from.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And, when I decided to have or ask everybody in the film to write a chapter, and I think a couple people said, well, what do you want us to write it on? And I said, you know what? I want everybody to write what they feel in that moment. No particular form. Write what comes, what the focus is. And so therefore it allowed for a nice variety, as opposed to having it so structured. You write about this or you write about that. And so many people love the book. They just love that book. Yeah, that was the whole idea of it. And, and how I feel right now, the film is probably more relevant than ever at this time. And I do wish that everybody could get an opportunity to see it, and not just my film, but other films like it that sort of will remove you from that fear, as opposed to sitting down and watching again the same set of news that you heard in the morning, and then you heard it, again at midday, and then you're listening to it again in the afternoon, and then at 11 o'clock again at night. I mean, that's serious programming. And it's you set yourself up. So then when you go to bed, especially when you watch the news or certain things that late, it's got to impact you, because you have to remember your brain wants to shut you down to take you through that certain period of balancing enough to then take you into even the more healing periods after midnight and 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. But it's very hard to get yourself to produce the melatonin or the what should I say, the neurotransmitter, the changing of the guards, I like to say, of hormones. All of this kind of behavior keeps you like this agitated, so it makes it more difficult for the body to make its different transitions of hormones, of that's not the word. I'm saying neurotransmitter, but that's not what I wanted to use. There's a different word, but some reason it's not coming to me. But anyway, it's all hormones. So it happens at different times of the night. And that's what we need to understand. There's a lot of changing of the synthesizing then of these chemicals in our bodies at different times.
Which are crucial, in fact, for the maintenance of good health, because we know that lack of sleep or disturbed sleep is responsible for all sorts of problems, from heart disease to even obesity, apparently, because of production of cortisol. So it's a huge thing. So yes, the message.
Like you said, you mentioned that about being able to rest, and even music, maybe something calming. If you have to work these long hours and you take a break, maybe like you said, do some breathing, deep breathing, and maybe listen to some calming music. We can just find different ways, so.
And that's the thing, is that no matter how challenging your life is, and in fact, the more challenging it is, the more relevant this is. So if that you're working really long hours and that you have to work those long hours, and you've got children and you've got, let's say, aging parents as well. And there's a huge demand on you. Becomes more important than ever before. It's absolutely the time to do simple things, like if you're driving, just have some nice calming music, happy music. You know, as we're going into longer days, to have good lighting that, you know, boosts your mood. If you can, at weekends, get out, go for a walk.
Me time.
Yeah, just
nature.
Even if you must take your children with you, of course, that would be wonderful for them too. Doing it as a family, again, that's good for, it's all these simple things that don't require money. They require time, and time is very precious. And again, as I say, if you're working very long hours,
Prioritizing too.
But you need to remember that it's important, because if you don't, you won't prioritize it. And that's where things start to go wrong. And sleep is a huge part of that.
It's a huge part of it. It's a huge part of it. And especially when you have people that are working outside of the normal rhythm for sleep, and you know, you're working during those times as opposed to sleeping. Yeah, you do want to make sure that you get me time in. You want to get into nature, if it's by the ocean, by the mountains when you can, trees, even a park that's lush. We need that balancing and exposure. And when you can, yes, do take your shoes off and walk on some grass, rub your feet in the grass. That also help to eliminate the buildup of static electricity, because the static electricity builds up in the body from sitting in front of the computer, from even driving in your car, and we're bombarded by it. And it does help to dehydrate us as well. And drink, you know, drinking water, because the water is a conduit for electricity, and your cells need it. You know, you need the water in your body, as opposed to, you know, it becoming stagnant. So there's a whole process of simplicity. Even breathing into a tree is so awesome, because they like the carbon dioxide that comes from us. So I do that when I hike. I'll go, I have these trees that I love to go to, and I lean on them. Basically at the end of the hike, I come to this one spot and I inhale and I just exhale right into the tree, because they're going to convert it. You know, everything is coming out. They're converting that to oxygen. And I do thank them. I exhale and I say, thank you so much. Oh, and I feel so much lighter. So give it right back out there to nature. Just see it leaving, the stress leaving. Nature wants to take all of it, and she takes it and she converts it to usable energy.
I love that. I love that. And I guess we can sum up by saying that what we're reminding everyone to do is to do things that are calming. You calm the system. The more stressed you are, the more badly you need to do this. And it's very easy when we're stressed to get caught in a cycle, a loop, where we're getting more and more to a point of almost frenzy, because we are so busy and we think we can't get out of it. If you're at work and you need a toilet break, take a toilet break and breathe.
Yeah, go sit in there and just
go. If you can't, if that's the only thing you can do, go to, nobody's going to follow you. Leave your phone on your desk or something, and just go and breathe for 2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
Just take some deep breaths, calm yourself, go back out again. And, you know, just if that's all you can do, you're already something to calm yourself. So it's vital for your health and well-being, which is exactly what we're talking about, is what you can do to empower yourself, and not simply think that health is something that you rely on other people.
Yeah.
You also can give health to yourself. And that takes us to the wonderful title of the book, Health, an Inside Job Outside Business. And I am going to put the links to both the documentary and the book on the description box. And Sonia, if people wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
My main website is therealsoniabarrett.com. That's my main website, therealsoniabarrett.com. Because there's so many other things that I do that's centered around helping people. And I just want to throw this in. When you were talking, it just came to me. People tend to be stressed because they think that they might get fired. And that's a real powerful thing. You're so afraid that you might get fired because of everything that's mounting on this paycheck. But I want to tell you that, just relax and let that go, because even if you got fired, just know in your heart, I'm going to be okay. Even if we can let that go, you're more likely to either be at the job or to not feel the way that you do at the job because you feel like you have to be there, you're forced to be there. And I know from when I worked in corporate America, I understand the whole dynamics of that. So I just wanted to throw that out, is just to know that you're going to be okay no matter what. And there is another job out there. It might not seem like it right now, but there's always going to be another way. We just have to know that there is always a way, and that will be okay. But you need your body more than anything else. You don't have a body, no point worrying about getting fired. You need a body. So that's what I wanted to say.
We're saying, let go of the fear. Let go of the fear. Fear is, we can all understand fear. But Sonia and I are agreeing on is that fear is toxic. Yeah. It's toxic for our health, and that we need to counter it in every way we know how. And so that's a good way to end our talk, our conversation today. And I'll make sure that your website is also on the description box. Sonia, thank you so much for joining on In the Light today.
Thank you so much. It was a privilege and an honor to be here. Thank you to your audience as well.
Thank you for watching. And next time, we're going to be looking at sound as a sacred means for healing. And until then, goodbye.